How do you promote a family business with gusto? Stay tuned. Welcome to this week's edition of NoteSchool TV, episode 246. We are coming up on our 5-year anniversary in, 1st of October. And thank you for watching today. We have amazing guests and done really well. We'll bring them on in just a second, but let's take care of some household chores here. Number one, make sure to like this episode. Hit the like button. Share this with your friends, family, associates, everybody that you know out there. And if you have any, make your comments in the comment section. Number two, if you have not already subscribed to the NoteSchool TV channel, make sure and do that. And then number three, make sure and hit that bell notification, bing, right? So that you'll be notified when we go live. When? Every Wednesday at 11:05 Central Time. So if you have any questions about what we do at NoteSchool, simply go to noteschool.com/TV. Again, noteschool.com/TV. And with that, let's bring on, founder of NoteSchool, Chief Visionary Officer, all-around good guy, my friend, Mr. Eddie Speed.
Good morning, Joe.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. It is we are having a good time in the early summer.
Yes.
And heard everybody talking about how hot it is, and you guys your various markets. So I guess it's just summertime, right?
It's just summertime.
But a hot market too, Joe.
It's a hot market. And getting hotter every day.
So we have a great couple of guests today, and this is really about a family business and really about how to promote and build a family business and how they're doing it and using a note strategy in order to do that. So I'm pretty excited to have these guys today, and we're going to have a fun time with them.
Yes, you are. I'm going to drop off. I'll see all of you at the end of the show. So have a great show, Eddie.
All right. Well, today we have a father and son team. And so Steve Warthman and his son, Tyler, are on with us today. There's another son, and he's out working in the business. So he's not with us, but we're going to get to hear both representation of dad and one of the sons. And so you guys welcome Steve and Tyler Warthman.
Hey, Eddie.
Good morning.
Good morning. Morning.
Tyler, in the old days, they don't name businesses much anymore, but it would have been Warthman and Sons is how in the old school they would have named a hardware store, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is a great story, and we are so glad to have you guys today. Steve, I know that you were in the manufacturing business for many years and ran that as an executive and exited that business. And so you really were back out fishing again, looking for the next opportunity, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think really looking at, what am I going to do for the next 20 years? Retirement in the sense of golfing and fishing just wouldn't stimulate my mind. So, as we started looking, Eddie, we looked at, real estate first. We were looking at inflation and, thinking about how we could combat inflation over the next 10 years, just coming out of a period of very high inflation. And, we looked at the rental models and, they looked promising. The thing that we saw was when you get into a rental, you're spending all your cash and then you're getting the monthly rental. But as we went forward and came in contact with NoteSchool and went to the 2-day Rich Rewards course, there was conversation about a comparison of a rental model versus a note model. And inside that rental model, we're still responsible for taxes and insurance and upkeep. And then you've got vacancies. In the note model, we're not responsible for taxes or insurance or upkeep. And so when you looked at that, I mean, I think the note model was generating 2 to 3 times the return on a monthly basis versus the rental model. So, you and I had a conversation about in January when I was there, and I was still on the fence of which way we were going to go. And you made the comment there's a lot of grinding and a lot of work in that rental model versus the note model as well. So I think it's not only the returns, it's also the amount of effort that you have to put in to note investing versus rental investing. So I think all those things really led us to deciding that we were going to be 99% note investors. And I leave the 1% out there because you don't know what's going to happen, but our focus and our dedication is towards notes today. So,
well, we're going to talk about a couple of things today specific to your story because you have such a great story. I want to talk a little bit about why notes versus rentals, and then you brought your 2 sons in the business, so you have a family legacy that you're helping really promote and build this business with, and very similar to my story, right? My father-in-law got me started in the business, and so I definitely want to dig off into that and kind of what you guys, all of your visions were, both yours and Tyler's. But more specifically, I want to start out with why notes versus other things. So I always say, Steve, that Note School serves 2 audiences. We serve an audience of people that have had rentals and are trying to exit. They're trying to figure out how to go take what was making a lot of money and go back to something that's making way more money than they're making with their current rental situation, right? And the other audience we serve are people that haven't done it yet, right? And what your story is pretty dang common. You were interested in real estate, and then all of a sudden you start running the math, and we're just going to use some simple math, right? $100,000 invested. A rent house makes about $4,000 a year net income. If you paid all cash for a rent house, the math, it says you're only making $4,000. But if you bought a note for $100,000, it's making, as you said, between 2 and 3 times that money. So let's just say 2.5 times. Okay. So all of a sudden, instead of making $4,000, you're making $10,000 on the same $100,000 investment. Notes versus a rental. Now you're an engineer, and you and Tyler both are darn good at math, and your other son Trevor is too, right? So you didn't need to go, it wasn't some complex, mathematical formula. You need to go figure this out. It's like common sense says the market's changed. Look at your 30-year career of running a manufacturing company. Anything ever change in 30 years?
Every day.
So that was the conversation we had, and so you're doing notes, and there's plenty of strategies that we're going to be able to, and we'll talk about this a little more as we progress. But there's plenty of strategies to go get your money back. Like most people say, well, Steve, you could just go get a mortgage against the rent house. And if you got a mortgage against the rent house, you'd get your money back. But when we ran that $4,000 on $100,000 a while ago, that didn't include in paying back the bank. That's a formula that's used in real estate where it doesn't include paying the bank back, paying interest to the bank. Now, of that $4,000 you would have netted, go put a mortgage on it. How big of a mortgage could you have gotten, Steve?
Probably about a $20,000 mortgage to cover to cover the $4,000 that's left, maybe $40,000. But
it's not a good leveraging model today. Yes. Like the math is not there to do it, and that's what people are discovering. And we've got some tools and can help people figure that out. But what you could do, and what you guys totally know how to do, is there's ways to get your money back. Even if you bought a note, you can go work with a bank or a private investor or a private lender, or various ways. You can go get a fairly significant amount of your money back from buying a note, using the note as something that you can pledge to a lender or sell the front end of the payment or whatever that looks like. And so most people don't realize that. Everybody knows you can get a mortgage on a rent house. It's just the math isn't good for it.
Yeah. I mean, Eddie, and that's what we saw when we were looking at the rentals, exactly that. So, if I go back to last fall when we started looking at this, we had a pile of money. And then, as you said, I mean, we had to go and buy these properties for cash in order to make the 4,000. And 4,000 on 100K is a 4% return. I can get a high yield savings account for that kind of return without the work, right? So when we met you the first time, I mean, that was the thing that you explained was you can go recapitalize or go get cash for the note. You can do different things. You can do a pledge or a partial to different parties and still retain some of that cash flow and reduce your investment to, I mean, if you can almost get it, you recover the whole investment and you've got residual cash coming in.
That's
that's powerful from my standpoint because, we're not sinking all the cash in until that, rental property, well, we're not even selling it. So it's just sunk cash. But here on the note side, as we go and we talk about, the different methods of recovering the cash, there's always something good from a cash flow standpoint in those models, whether it's on a pledge, you're getting continuous monthly cash flows, or on a partial, let's say you're ending up with, hey, in the future, there's going to be, we call it a money tree. When the mortgage closes and it's paid off, there's something out there for us that's pretty significant. So both of those things allowed us to reuse this capital almost like a bank, right? And go work with investors and recycle the money and just continue to grow the portfolio to the point that we're generating better returns, and it becomes the basis for our business, and that's really exciting to us.
Yeah, there's some real simple things you can do to go get your money back with a note, but they're not as commonly known as things that you can go do like with a rent house.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the thing. That's part of where Note School has kind of figured out it fills a big gap. Once people see it, they see it.
Yep.
But they have to be taught it, like so many things in life, right? And once you're taught it, then it's not like it's like Star Wars kind of stuff. It's actually pretty simple once you kind of learn how to do it. So Tyler, I want to talk to you a minute, sir.
Of course.
So I started in the business with my father-in-law, not my dad, but my father-in-law at 20 years old, right? And I know you and your brother, Trevor, and you guys are younger guys. And so, there's a lot of things you can go do in life.
Yeah.
But I want to get your vision of like why this made perfect sense to kind of build a family business doing this.
Yeah, I mean, from an initial perspective, from where we were about 2 years ago, I was here in Michigan, my dad down in Florida, Trevor was over in Arizona. So doing this business first really allowed us to kind of come together as a family unit again, which is a very powerful initial objective. And then secondary to that, I mean, as you mentioned and alluded to, the three of us believe we're pretty smart. So we wanted to do something that would allow for us to, feel the fruits of that labor. And we got into real estate initially, as my dad had mentioned, but there was always an underlying question for us of, is what we're doing compliant? Are we planning for compliance? And on the note side of things, there's really not that question. It's a very much so compliant business. And that allowed for us to sit a lot more comfortably and consider the ROE and ROI impact versus the real estate side of things, and just altogether be more comfortable and excited for where this industry allows us to take ourselves.
Yeah, it's it is a business, particularly the loans that we're chasing. We're chasing loans that have gone through a process, an underwriting process. So somebody's vetted the buyer and vetted the information. And so those are things that are important to us. I mean, not everybody in the business does that. We just try to chase people that do it well, right? And so, yeah, as far as all of the acronyms, the ROIs and all, like it, the bottom line is, do you make money? Right? That's the simple answer is, if I'm going to go do all this stuff, is it worth doing? Right. And so I love the idea. I was telling your dad recently, I feel like I was in the same situation. I was a young guy and I could have gone to work for a bank or, an investment company or a real estate company, but I might have been 10 years before I would have gotten at the executive level to go learn to think like, how does the executive learn to think?
Right.
Right. And so you're starting, you and your brother are starting out, you and Trevor are starting out with the ability to do that from the very get-go.
Right. I would suggest that over the last year, I've accrued more valuable knowledge than the previous 26 years combined. So genuinely mean that. Yeah. I mean, it's a privilege to have this information and to have it be applicable so immediately.
Sounds like, Eddie, you're a better teacher than I am, because you got it, the knowledge in 1 year, and I have the 26 years before that. So.
Well, when I started in the business, trust me, there was no training platform.
Yeah.
And it was a kind of a school of hard knocks a little bit with my father-in-law, but still all in that was really better. And we've done that in our family, Tyler. My son Wood's slightly older than you, and he is a fireman and paramedic, and I think that is his life's calling, and I think he's really, really good at that. But his part-time gig is to work with us and kind of take over like what my wife has been doing, kind of building our family legacy in retirement. And so we're doing the same thing. And so I think I'm a big fan of, not everybody listening to this today has a family situation. And if you don't, that's perfectly okay. But I'm telling you, a lot of guys. And so, Tyler, I'm saying you represent an audience that a lot of people out there that are listening to this, they have this situation also, that they have somebody in their family that they would like to bring along and learn. Because here's the thing, your dad is teaching you how to invest money. He's not just giving you money.
Oh, certainly. Certainly. And that's why it's so valuable and such privileged experience to me. I mean, there's no privilege of here's a whole bunch of cash, go spend it, buy cars, do this. No, I mean, we really have to work together to feel the fruits of this labor before we are going to spend any money at all. I mean, we're not very wasting people in that regard, very frugal. And so that's definitely allowed me to hone in on the privilege that's brought.
Yeah. All right. So Steve, from a father situation, like what was your vision of bringing your sons in? And what is it that you thought that they might have an advantage of that maybe you didn't when you started?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Eddie, first, they're 25 and 27. I would kill to go back and be 25 years old and learning what they're learning today, because I think as I think forward or to where they're going to be in 10 years, and I compare that to your comment about 10 years to get to that executive level. I mean, they will have been operating at, doing deals, relationship management, everything under the sun. So I think in 10 years, I mean, they're going to have skills that, people dream about because they've been in the business for 10 years. Yeah. And I think that's probably, forget about the money for a second. I mean, my career was successful because I had the capacity for learning and I went into a lot of different situations. And these guys, they're getting right now the education. Yeah, I'm teaching them some things about running a business, but I don't have that knowledge. So, I mean, really partnering with NoteSchool is allowing all three of us to go through this at the same time. And, and there's so many times where, I mean, Tyler or Trevor will ask me, hey, what's the answer to this? And I'll say, I don't know. Get a hold of NoteSchool. But I think, the lasting thing is that it's education about how to invest and how to set their own path. I mean, we're doing it together, but, in 20 years, I mean, they're going to be sitting on a very successful career because they've learned. And, part of that is, really the work with NoteSchool, bringing us along and coaching us and guiding us. And, even this morning, you and I talked, and I had a paradigm about something. I had a thought, oh, this is the way it is. And you said, no, let's talk about that more a little bit later, because you've got these options, and I think that's really key. And so as I think about it, the legacy for me is having these guys have knowledge and skills that are going to carry them, to a financially good place for the rest of their life. So,
well, I tell people all the time, NoteSchool is just simply a compression of time. That's what NoteSchool really represents. We're just a compression of time.
Yep.
There's nothing that NoteSchool team has figured out, or our colonial team where you're now actively buying assets. There's nothing we figured out that you won't figure out. It's just that we got some decades behind us, right? And so we kind of know, yeah, that's true, but it's this and that. And it's fun for us. I mean, your family pretty quickly has gotten a reputation, like these guys are smart, right? And they ask good questions, and we always want to be slow enough to make sure that we're putting you in a position to make the decisions you should make. I don't ever want to teach somebody how to go do the business and just say, well, Eddie said to buy it, so I shouldn't. No, Eddie may said I would buy it, but I want you to know you'd be okay with buying it,
yeah.
Right? And that's part of what I feel like the whole journey is making sound decisions. I was talking to some guys on a call a little bit ago, Steve, and we were talking about the fact that you can listen to the internet, and some promoters on the internet will tell you this or that. Well, they're sales guys. Let's be honest about it. Right. And so we want to make sure that we do it and go through it. And yes, this is why we built a school. This is why we built a process, and everything that we have in there are things that I built because when I started, quite honestly, Tyler, I didn't have that. And it sure makes it easier when you've got some, training and platform and videos and all that stuff. It makes it eliminates some of that school of hard knocks. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but Eddie, I would even say one more thing about that. I mean, we went through the training, we've gone through the videos, but the other thing that I think is really powerful with NoteSchool is, and Tyler, I don't know if you agree with this, but I feel like we're part of a team. We're out doing our thing. Behind us is, and supporting us is, the team that you put together. So when we don't know and we have questions, the team is right there, and they're responsive, and sometimes they're putting their arm around us, sometimes they're giving us direction. It's really nice to have that, because if we were alone, we would make mistakes. We're going to make mistakes, but it's going to be 90% less mistakes because we're leveraging the team, your team, that's supporting us. So I just can't say enough about that.
Right.
Well, it's
agree.
It's a bench, right? We have a bench, right? And we got a bench of kind of gray hair, and that means that they've seen lots of transactions, as literally tens of thousands of transactions. And so, but once again, it goes back to this, Steve. It's that compression of time.
Yep.
Right? We just are bringing experience together to narrow it down to what business decisions do I need to make, and you're asking us, what's your thought process, and how you would, whether you would say buy the deal or pass on the deal, what characteristics are you looking at? And to us, like that's, but once again, that was my dream 25 years ago when I built NoteSchool. My dream 25 years ago was, there's other people that would like to do this. They can't do it because the time, the learning curve is very painful. So how could you shorten the learning curve?
Yeah.
You have a school that gives people a compression of time.
Yeah, exactly.
Tyler, I want to talk a little bit about from your perspective. So, your dad came into NoteSchool and he just had more life experience, right? He'd run a very successful business, very astute business gentleman. I will assure you, I know that to be a truth today, right? And so you come in and just less life experience, And what I want to make sure that what you're seeing and getting is that you feel like that. Like you're super smart. You could go figure any of it out. But that time is the problem, right?
Right. Oh, yeah. So I think from my perspective, the way that you framed it initially for us and really emphasizing the focus on future value of present money, that really allowed me to put a framework in place that honed in on that focus and objective primarily. From there, we could consider how a pledge worked, consider a partial, consider what that means in terms of cash flow and just generally the future value of that money. So you kind of put the timeline in place of what to focus on and where to place those focus steps at the right positions for us, such that they're maintained, 6 months, 7 months down the line at this point. I think we've been through a couple of other gurus who, yes, there was a linear intent, but the focus behind each step it wasn't presented in the same way that you did that allowed us to continue to focus on it for so long. So the initial training was fantastic, but then just the continuous support by everybody from the trade desk, as my dad was alluding to. Like we talk about, I'm going to name drop Charles. We talk so positively about Charles every other day now, just because we get to work with him so frequently. So from my perspective, you have the training just set up in a way that is very receptible for anybody, and your support staff is like top class.
Well, the one thing you're describing things that maybe the audience hasn't seen yet. And so one of the things that we try to do is we teach in a pattern of teaching by case studies. So we take a note transaction. You buy the note, what made you buy it, and what characteristics were, say, hey, this is a good deal. It's not perfect, but it's perfect enough. And then you get into what we call the financial modeling. Like, okay, now you got this note and you're receiving a payment. What if you want to get some of your money back? How could you do that, right? And so we just have learned, like, teaching real case studies about real deals, then all of a sudden, bam, you see it. Like it makes sense. I want it to be more than theory. I want it to be like, okay, what did that deal look like? And by the way, Tyler, you probably know this, but when you teach with case studies, it's a lot easier for people to remember it.
Certainly. Yep.
You remember that house with those green shutters, or you remember that story about so-and-so and stuff. And so it's just somehow I'm fairly simple-minded, and we just are always trying to figure out, like, how can you teach it in a way that really works? So you guys have busted off, and you're buying a pretty big portfolio to start out with, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
For about $4 million worth of notes.
Yep.
And we're right down to some logistics on it, which is always the case, but we're working through them, as you said, Tyler, and you got a pretty seasoned captain on the ship there, and Charles, and he's got many decades in the business and has closed lots of stuff. And he's a good guy, right? He's a good, patient guy and easygoing, and the team, everybody likes working with him. And so there's a number of people involved in that. In fact, I walked in this morning and kind of checked on how we doing, and just finishing up a couple of things. But that's pretty exciting. You guys are like, some people buy their first note, Steve, and you guys are buying your first 30-something notes.
Yeah, 40.
Yeah, 40 notes.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, listen, it's super exciting. I mean, going back to, meeting up in January and, kind of telling you my personal situation, and, us having the conversation about rentals, or I was a little on the fence, and you gave me some very straight advice, to just something to think about. And we did. And so here we are, getting ready to close on this here. I mean, it'll be this week for part of it, and probably in the next 2 weeks to close all 40 out. So yeah, super exciting. We're going to have a little celebration when that happens. So, but again, it's, that whole possibility came about because of, the relationship that, you and I established, and being open and candid with you about what our goals were, and, and getting enlisted in NoteSchool to help us through that process with everything that the team does, the due diligence. And, we did it on our side as well, because we want to learn and go through that, and we had some back and forth there. But I think from that process, we're just ready to close and start collecting some money. So.
Well, I'm excited for your new business. I'm excited on how you guys are promoting it and doing it with your family. And those are things that clearly, to me, I have a heart for. In my situation, I've seen it so many times in our Note School stories. So it's exciting. Tyler, we're glad to have you. I'm always love to see the young blood in the business, and so you help drag some more young people in. We'll always try to take care of them, but we're excited to see you guys both and what you're doing.
Well, thank you very much, Eddie. I'm very grateful to be here and working with you guys. I mean, genuinely.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Joe, bring us home, sir.
All right. Great talk, guys. We're so happy for you and the family. Steve, you guys have done great. Raised two smart young men, and that's a great thing today. So there you go. We look forward to a big future and just staying together and moving this thing forward. So that is it. Great job. We'll wrap it up by simply saying thanks so much for all of you that are on today. We appreciate you. We love to have you guys on. Share any comments with us that you have, and we will see you next week, same place, same time. And when is that? Well, it's Wednesday, every Wednesday at 11:05 Central Time. We'll see you then. Have a great week.